Alrighty, here we are. We started 1 minute late. That's actually not too bad. I think a couple weeks ago we started like 45 minutes late. The conversation we had with the guest was like nuts right before we jumped in, and it was really, really fantastic. But that being said, we are here today with Juan J.P. Perez. He's a former U.S. Marine infantry and scout sniper, and you also were a law enforcement officer, right?
Yeah, for 10 years.
Oh, it's awesome. That's great. Was that challenging? Would
Yeah,
you say it was as challenging as being a Marine or just different?
it was different. It was different. I took it and ran with it, but we can definitely talk about that for sure.
That's cool. So today I am here alone. Rocco has been feeling under the weather recently. Again, I always like to give him a shout out. I know it's 2 weeks in a row. He has not been able to make it, but again, Rocco is crucial to Refit. He's one of the OGs. He is the OG, I would say, in terms of people, someone that received major benefit from Project Refit. He's still alive today with us. Chris Carr, one of the original co-founders of this, kicked his door in and all that crazy shit. Helped him out and saved his life. But we are definitely grateful for Rocco and him actually even up. Speaking of which, he is actually jumping into the stream. What up, Rocco?
What up?
There he is. I was just talking about you, buddy, saying how grateful we are for you, and he's gone. So he will hopefully be back in a second.
Sure.
But we love Rocco and appreciate him for everything he's done for us and continues to do. And he's actually the reason why we started this thing up. So, back up, I should say. Now, all that being said, I would love for you, Juan, to talk to us, bro. Talk to us about your career, your decisions, why you wanted to do this, and all of that. Take us through. Take us to the beginning, your childhood, all of it, bro.
Oh, fuck yeah. Is it cool if I swear?
Yes.
All right, cool. First of all,
I
thank you
love
for
how
having me
wait,
here.
hold on. I love how you just tested it out by saying "fuck
Yeah,
yeah"
I
and
know.
then you asked.
I know.
But absolutely, the name of the podcast is FML,
I know.
so
I love it.
everybody immediately thinks "fuck my life." So if we didn't allow cursing,
No, for sure. So first of all, thank you for having me here. I appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this. Second of all, yeah, let's dive into it. I grew up in Chicago. I had a very kind of weird childhood. I didn't really have a lot of friends. My parents moved us around when I was about 15, so I kind of rebelled a little bit. Got involved in gangs. I had undiagnosed ADHD as a kid, so I was always kind of looking for something where I felt like I belonged. And of course, the Marine Corps was that for me. I joined the Marine Corps, and I knew what I wanted to do. Right, I watched that movie Jarhead, and I wanted to become a scout sniper. So I did infantry. I did that first deployment to Afghanistan. Went there in 2010 with Lehman Company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines. It was a wild time. It was a fun time, a crazy time. You know, crazy memories that feel like yesterday, but also memories that feel so distant. Right. Came back from Afghanistan, and I went out to the sniper platoon. Did the NDOC, did that, and eventually went to sniper school. Um, had a blast there. And when I say a blast, I do mean like the hard stuff in life. I enjoy it. I think that the harder the thing, the more epic the story, right? So like it was fun. It was an epic time. It was a wild time. I got out and I made every mistake in the book. I fucked up a lot. I got married right away. I went into law enforcement not because that's a mistake, but because I kept using all the shit that I was dealing with from the military to make me a good officer. And I didn't heal. I was an egomaniac. I only cared about myself and my team. I pushed a lot of people away. I ruined my first marriage. I didn't care for you if you weren't a veteran, really, and I blamed society for all my problems. I was smoking, a pack a day. I was drinking every night. I was, just being honestly the typical veteran that doesn't acclimate to society, because there's typical veterans for everything, right? But I don't believe that you have to be any type of veteran. Yeah.
yep.
But I made all those mistakes, and I did really well in law enforcement because of the things and the tools that I used from the military. But the thing is, I don't think you have to necessarily use all the tools from the military. I think that there's stuff that benefits you and stuff that definitely hurts you. And the stuff that benefited me, I volunteered for everything. I raised my hand. I was the first one there. I was the last one to leave. I sacrificed the family that I was trying to build for this career. I gave everything to the department, and I really got to the lowest point when I was drinking all the time. I was fat, out of shape. Honestly, I wasn't really caring about my life. I didn't really communicate with my family much. My mom and dad were there, but they weren't really there. And I felt like nobody understood me. I blamed the military, I blamed society, I blamed the VA, I blamed the government, I blamed everybody for my problems besides myself. And I was at a low point. And I've talked about this before, but I've never really told a story. So I hope this is a good place to tell this story of basically my lowest point.
Let's go.
So I was driving home one day after work, and I hadn't slept in 2 days. I was doing search warrants. I was definitely like self medicating with alcohol every single week and every single weekend. But this day, I hadn't worked in 2 days. So I wasn't drinking at this point, but I hadn't slept in 2 days. Excuse me. And I ended up crashing my car. And I remember crashing my car and almost taking my life. And then I remember feeling like everybody was judging me. Everybody was against me. And I realized that I was kind of creating this life for myself. And I actually like went home and I thought about ending it all. And I've never told the full story. Um, I went home and I picked up one of my weapons, and I kind of just sat with it in my living room and I thought about the life that I've lived. I thought about the fact that I didn't really have anything to show for it. That I had already gone through one divorce, and I felt like I didn't really have any friends. I had people that I worked with, people that were very much like me, but it just felt like mirror images of me. Other cops that were on my team with me, but there was no one in my life that was different than me. And I think that's what scared me the most, that I was just surrounded by people that I had put into my life because of the teams that I was on. But I realized just how lonely and alone I felt. And I couldn't talk to anybody about it. Sorry. And I just started thinking about my entire life.
Mm,
And I started realizing that every single situation that I found myself in where things did not work out the way that I wanted, I was the common denominator.
hmm
I was the one that wasn't going to the VA for my appointments. I was the one that wasn't acknowledging the fact that I had PTSD and trauma. I was the one that was pushing family away. I was the one that was making sure that I didn't make friends with anyone that wasn't just like me.
mm,
And I had created this world for myself of just an echo chamber of just, if I don't agree with it, then it doesn't make sense.
right.
And I was very unhappy with where I was at. I was fat, out of shape. I was drinking all the time. I was going on as many dates as possible just to get a high, a dopamine, to sleep with someone because I thought that that would bring me some sort of value in my life. And because of the life that I had in law enforcement, I kept going, and I realized that if I wanted to change my life, I had to start doing things differently. That it was really all up to me. And I started reading the book called 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson.
Mm,
And I read it differently than I normally would read because I had trouble reading. The only time I've ever read a full book before was in Afghanistan. So I started reading this book and I started applying every single thing to my life. I would read a chapter, then I would reread it, and then I would listen to it on the audio version, and then I would start trying to do these things in my life. And I realized when you become self-aware of how bad your life is, or when you become self-aware of the fact that you are where you are at because of all the decisions you've made, it gives
yes.
you a lot of power because you realize that all you have to do is just start changing your actions. And I tested it. And I applied everything, and I started treating people differently. I started treating myself differently. I started realizing that I didn't have an enemy out here. I didn't have anyone that was against me. And I think I used that from the military.
Yeah.
Because when you go into the military, like, you learn that there is an enemy out there, and sometimes, believe it or not, you build this rivalry with other platoons, other companies, other battalions, and you wanna be better than them, and it gives you something to push for, so you always have this kind of alpha mindset of, like, "I have to be the best one here. I can't show any weakness. I can't talk about my problems." And that's what I did. I did that for the longest, and I kept looking at everyone around me as my competition, and there's nothing wrong with healthy competition, but
That's right.
yeah. But when you look at everyone as if they are coming to get you, you create this idea in your head that it is you against the world, and it's not. It's really not. I've recently started, I'm gonna go off topic here a little bit, but I've recently started trying to not just tell myself that I love myself, but actually show myself that I love myself. And that's something that I never did.
Mm,
Never. Because to me, loving myself was being the one that wrote the most search warrants, the one that people talked shit about because I felt like I was better than them. And I had a problem and I realized that and I started to do things differently. Like I said, I read that book and I started to change everything. I started working out. I started getting my life in order. I ended up in another relationship. At the time, I was still in a bad place, so I attracted someone that was in a bad place. But I did the work and I continuously woke up every day and I realized that I could have a good day, a best day, if I just did one or two or three or four things differently than the way I did the day before. And I've started doing that every day. And that's the mentality that I apply every day. And I wake up every day and I just remind myself that I am in control of my day, that no one gets to put me in a bad place. Nobody gets to piss me off. I am the one that controls whether something pisses me off or not. Do bad things happen? Absolutely. But like you get to decide how you respond to them. And I never responded. I would always react. I would always react because in the military they teach you that you have to react quickly, that you have to be able to take action. And I would very much emotionally react. And I was doing that consistently. I was pushing everybody away. And like I said, I started making changes and I changed my life around and my fuck my life moment was when I realized that I had no fucking friends. I had people on my team that they were like my brothers, they are my brothers, but that they were people that were very much like me. There was nobody to call me out on my shit. There was nobody that I was looking at as an example of what's possible for life. I didn't have a life. It was very much a continuation of the military. And everything kind of came to everything changed for me when they disbanded the unit that I was a part of. So I was working undercover in Chicago, and because of politics, because of whatever, it doesn't even matter. They disbanded the unit and they put me on the trains. So I went from doing really cool stuff that I actually loved and I felt like I was making a difference to arresting people for not paying their train fare. And that just didn't sit well with me.
mm,
So I I came up with a plan of leaving the department in 2 years, and everybody thought I was batshit crazy. People still do, that's fine. I knew that I was leaving something that gave me an amazing paycheck, had a pension, gave me all the overtime that I wanted, boosted my fucking ego because when you're a cop, you do feel like you have power, and people can definitely abuse that, and trust me, people normally don't do that, but there is that,
sure.
and I was definitely primed to not abuse it, but to definitely make being a cop my identity,
Mm,
and I had let that happen. So, when they told us that they were gonna, put us on the trains, I came up with a plan. I started my own business. At this time, I already had a child, I had a boy, and him coming into my life just made me take everything that I do much more seriously.
mm,
Um, and even then, even him coming here into this world, I didn't have the wake up that I needed because I still thought that I was a one track mind person. Even reading the book, even doing all the work that I had already done for the past 2 years, something definitely has to happen. There has to be a shift in your environment, because like you can tell yourself that you're changing on the inside, but if your environment doesn't change and you're still kind of doing the things that you do on a day-to-day basis that don't align with you anymore, it's not going to always change. You're still in the same environment. You're still around the same people, and I love the people that I work with. Don't get me wrong, but the entire organization was very much like the military. And as much as I love the Marine Corps and the military, like, we all left for a reason. We all got out for a reason. It was a beautiful chapter in our lives. Um, but it's a chapter. And I hold my time in the military and my time in law enforcement near and dear to me. It's part of what made me who I am. And now I take the positive things that I got from my time in the military and in law enforcement, and I try and use those, and I try and capitalize on those. But I know that there's baggage. I know that there's fucking baggage.
Yeah, man.
And you have to deal with it. And if you don't deal with it, it's going to sneak up on you. And you're going to snap on your son one day, and you're gonna realize that it's because of the fact that you do that all the time at work on people, because it's kind of needed then. And this was a realization I recently had, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, and I apologize.
No, keep rocking, dude. This is great.
There was a realization I had recently, James, where I realized that, so my son's name is Oliver. He yelled at, and Rocco, thank you for the comments, brother. I am seeing them. I appreciate you. Everybody else commenting, I appreciate you guys. It means a lot to me. I appreciate you guys. So my son yelled at my dog a couple of months ago, the same way that I do. And I realized that, like, he is picking up more from me than I am teaching him, because I've never told him to do that. He just sees me do it.
Mm.
And I realized that even though I left the department in November of last year, like, I still have traits from being a cop for 10 years. And he yelled at him like I do. And it hurt me to see that, because it's like, I don't want to pass that off to my kid. I don't want my son to grow up with this anger, not even knowing where it comes from. Like, it's not him. And it made me very sad. It made me feel very hurt, but it also woke me up to the responsibility that I have. And the responsibility is to him, but it's to me, right? Because if I don't change the way that I talk to my dog, to people, to him, like, he's gonna keep doing that. He's gonna pick up on it, and before I know it, he's gonna be 15 years old doing the things that I do because of how I did them. So I've been working on dissecting and digesting what is it from my military and my time in law enforcement that has negatively affected me, and I'm working on it. But I'll tell you this, one of the realizations I had was that for 10 years, I had a radio on me that I heard nothing but the worst of people. I heard nothing but the terrible stuff that was happening all the
Yep.
time. Person shot, person stabbed, robbery victim, rape, a child was just thrown out of a window, like, evil shit. Evil shit. And it's something that I heard for 10 years on repeat all the time. And dude, like, what served me in the military, it made me a good cop, because I was a scout sniper and I had attention to detail, and I fucking loved it, dude. I would be the first one to work. I would listen to the radio on the way in, my own little personal radio. I would listen to the recordings of my radio transmissions to see how I could do better. I would do search warrants, and I would be meticulous with the shit. I would freaking dress up as a mailman to make sure that we were hitting the right door, because I didn't want to hit the wrong door. And all of that, now I'm just translating it. And when you translate stuff, you don't just translate it and you just take it at face value when you apply it to your new life, but you have to, like, change it. It has to evolve, just the way that we all evolve. So now I am meticulous with my life, and I am attention to detail driven with my clients and my business and what I do. But I operate from a place of love, a place of abundance, not fear, not anger, not scarcity. And I think that's been the biggest shift for me. And I'm realizing this as I say to you, as I say this to you, because until you talk about things, I love journaling, because it is a way to unpack what you're carrying, that ruck that you have on your back, that you have all this shit that you maybe even don't fucking need. Maybe somebody threw a freaking 10-pound rock in there while you weren't looking. and you just unpack it and you pay attention to like what's true and what's useful, because just because it's true doesn't mean that it's useful. Just because you think you have to carry it doesn't mean that it's useful for the mission that you're on now. And I like the journal because you get to put stuff on paper or however you want to do it, and then you can kind of let go of a little bit, and then next week you realize that you don't have to necessarily carry all this shit with you, that there's no one out here trying to destroy your life besides you. You're the only one that can either build your life or destroy your life.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna pause right there. Go ahead. Sorry, I talked a lot.
No, man, listen, that's a lot. That's a lot to unpack, ask questions about, think about. You know, the number one thing that you mentioned, just to sum it up, was accountability and recognizing how important accountability is in your own life. I mean, like that's everything, dude. You know, it's you know, and then watching your child do something that you know in your heart and soul you don't want your kid to turn out to be. And you, of course, you want your kid to be tough, but what does
Mm,
tough actually mean, right? Like you want your boy to be a good man, you know. And what is a good man? How do you define that for you? Some things that you were mentioning actually were alluding to a lot of stoic teachings. Like you were
mhm,
actually alluding to even not allowing the world around you to dictate how you feel and dictate how you're going to act and everything. And you're really trying to work on that. Here's the thing though, right? Like, and I think you know this probably, but you know, just a reminder, that's a lifelong
I'm here
journey.
for it.
That's never going to be like you're going to wake up one day and just like it's all fixed. Like it isn't every day you wake up, you have to remind yourself. That's a great habit you're getting yourself into. When it comes down to like how you've made the changes, starting to, you know, watch your diet, work out, you know, and read books that are going to change your life and change who you are and change how you're being to the world and how you perceive the world. Uh, Specifically because you did hear the worst of the worst. You know what humans are capable of, right?
Yeah.
That's not the thing is, that's not a bad thing that you know that,
Mm,
right? That's a gift.
mm,
That's a gift that you know that. And I don't I personally don't appreciate narratives that are around like, oh, don't see the world like that. No, 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 no. See the world for exactly the way that you know that it is,
mm,
right? Because if you do the opposite, you will begin to get in the habit of lying to yourself. Don't do that, right? Like,
yeah.
why would we want to lie to ourselves? Why would the gift of knowing, right? Like that is the war. That's also why it bothers me when I see I actually love bringing this story up. I'll give you the story to get the point across before even saying it. There
Mhm,
was this gentleman that came on one of our retreats recently, actually, and he had a very hardened face. You know, he was a bigger dude. He was a combat vet. I think 2 tours, and he was just hard, right? He was a hardened man, hardened combat vet. And he was talking about how he wanted to get back to who he was. And I asked him, I was like, who you were? Who were you? How old were you before you got in the military, right? And he
yeah,
was like, I was 17. I was like, so you want to be a 17-year-old teenager again? And he
yeah,
was like, fuck no, that's not what I'm saying. I was like, well, what are you saying then? Right? Define it for me. Give it to me. What
mhm,
do you mean? And he's like, well, I just want to essentially what he was saying is, I just want to see the world not for what it is, right?
mm,
And that's when I was like, man, you earned that face. You earned the knowledge that you now know about people, about the world, about how it operates, about how evil it can be. And now you know and you can apply how to navigate that.
yeah,
That is a gift. That is a wonder. That is a man, right? So the thing is, you can pass that on to your kid and how to navigate it as you learn how to navigate it in a calmer, more staying center position, right?
mm,
So that to me, maybe along your journey, is to really begin to show people how you're going from I was violent, I knew what violence was, I became one with it, I enjoyed it, I love the power I felt from it. I love the power that was given to me. But then I began to recognize that the power is also another Stoic teaching, the pride that I felt that was eating away at me.
mm,
Right. So because pride, it's been talked about throughout history, how that is the downfall of man, right? You can tell just a person's weakness through their pride, right?
Mhm.
So you absolutely have an opportunity, and you are on it. You're on that journey. You're really becoming who you want to be, whoever
Mhm.
that is. And that can navigate and change and morph as time goes on, but the morals and values that you hold has to be the guiding posts, right? And
Yeah.
that's everything that I'm hearing you say, and I'm summing up obviously, but I I do agree with something Rocco's two things Rocco said. One, it takes a lot of courage to begin to take those moves and make those moves, and also that the knowledge is power, right? And that love is the answer. The knowledge that you have, the love that you are trying to project onto the world, is not one that is a hippy dippy naive love,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to get into the naivety, right? As soon as
Mhm.
you get into being naive, you're going to weaken yourself and everyone around you. You don't
Yeah.
want to be naive, and you actually can't be anymore, right?
Mhm.
So
You're right.
it's not naivete, if you will, naivete. It's all about understanding who to love and how to love who that is.
Mm.
So that all of the things you've been through and that you've gone through, the challenges, the struggles, the hate that you felt. I mean, dude, it's a gift. Just don't allow it to
Yeah.
don't look at it as a way, and I don't think you are, and I think you're really, after reading 12 Rules for Life, I'm sure you had a major shift in how
Yeah.
you look at the world. But continue to eat those words that are very good and positive for you,
Yeah.
but always keep the knowledge and the power that you've actually been able to gain. It's just, don't do it to prey on others. Preying on people, lying, being something you're not.
Yeah.
That's that's not it, you know? So that's
Oof.
definitely really, I think your story has a lot more positive to it than you might even recognize, which is why you probably still
Oof.
get negatively emotional about it, instead of like a positive emotion about it. Like you feel
Yeah.
down sharing it. You almost felt, I almost felt from you looking at your face and the way you were talking about your story was like this down moment. And really it's like, no, that is an up. You
Yeah.
recognize this. You're becoming accountable. That's the pain of accountability, the pain of truth, which is
Mhm.
also the very pain that sets you free, right? So
Yeah.
you're walking through that pain and facing it. And that's a big thing, Juan, for real.
I really appreciate you saying that. I'm working on that part on being open to talk about stuff about understanding that it is part of the story, right? And I agree with you 100%, but I think the perspective that you give is not only true, but it is useful. Um, you're absolutely right in so many different ways, right? We join the military and we don't know who we were before. We have to find out who we are. And I think you're right. I think that you have to understand that there is evil in this world. And I think when you know, I guess when you know who you don't want to be or what you don't want to be like, it gives you a pretty good understanding of what you are striving for, what you are working towards. So
Mm,
yeah, I'm with you on that. I
yeah,
appreciate you.
that's
Thank you for that.
yeah, you're welcome, man. I had a feeling you needed to hear that,
Yeah,
because
thank
just
you.
from there's so much beating up that is happening that I'm seeing when you share the story. It's this, that's that poison, right? That's the people fear a person that is not naive,
Mhm.
right? And you want to be liked by people. It's a natural thing. However, are those the people that you want to be liked by? Are those the
Mhm.
people that you want to be surrounded by? Or the people you really want to be surrounded by are the ones that are trying to inspire, the ones that are trying to help, the ones that are trying to be valuable and give back,
Yeah.
right? Like you mentioned how you felt so valuable when you were doing undercover work, and you felt valuable because you're making a difference and a change, right? But the thing is, what sucks is it was also infected with pride, right?
Mhm.
Because you were also still making a change, even if it was on the trains. Everything
Yeah.
has a purpose. Everything in life has a meaning and a purpose, right? And
Yeah.
that's difficult to comprehend. It's a difficult thing to understand because of the inherent pride that humans hold, which they believe is the thing that turns into purpose.
Mhm.
But that's when your purpose gets infected.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oof. I love that. You're
yeah.
absolutely right. Um, I think a lot of it comes from the fact that when you join the military, a lot of people, I know for me this is true. You're looking for something that lets you become part of something that's bigger than you, something that makes sense to you, something that you feel accepted and wanted and appreciated. But I think appreciation in the military comes in the form of I don't even know how it comes on, honestly. I think that when you fuck up in the military, you know that you fuck up. But sometimes when you do well, you don't really understand what it means to do well just because that's kind of what's expected of you. You're just doing your job. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing,
That's right.
and you get out and you keep chasing that. And I think you're absolutely right. I think I was chasing that. I know that I was because I was looking for something that would give me value, and identity. And I am definitely like on that journey of deconstructing that. And I appreciate everything you said because it resonates and it makes sense to me. And I don't know if anyone has ever put it to me that way. So I appreciate you for saying that truly.
Got you, man. Yeah, no worries. It's something, the thing you just mentioned about the recognition piece. I'll just say that to sum it up, like
Hmm.
the recognition piece. So many guys that I've talked to, who join the military, they're looking for that. They're looking for some kind of recognition. But when they do something good and somebody else gets the accolades instead of them, and they did the job, and they become vindictive and they become resentful, and like it's actually like, look, that's a young, immature mind that's coming from maybe an environment where they never really got that before, and then they're
Hmm.
lashing out, and actually ends up becoming a real negative for them. But if that's something that we can face, if that's
Hmm.
something that we can really dig into, and it helps you identify, like, wait a second, why did I become so vindictive and hateful towards this non recognition? What is that saying about me? Right?
Yeah.
That's what you're in right now. You are currently in that journey of
Hmm.
asking the questions of, like, what is that? Why do I need that so bad? Why do I need this
Yeah.
external validation so badly? I need to get validation from within. Right? By the way, I
Yeah.
want to make really fucking clear that that's something that I also need to get better at, right? And I am constantly going after that and trying to strive. Like, I know personally that, when I first even started like doing refit, like, for some reason I just felt like I needed, and this is like early. I stopped
Hmm.
feeling this way probably around like year 3 or 4 of doing this thing. Um, but I was looking so bad, and that's also when the growth started to happen, by the way. But
Yeah.
uh, the the thing I recognized was, I, I am not happy with me, right?
Hmm.
Like, it's actually me. Like, I was looking for so badly this external validation to be seen in a way of like, oh, like, I'm doing this, and it's like, nobody fucking cares. Are you
Yeah.
doing it for you? Or are you doing it for the people?
Yeah.
And it was always, by the way, it was always, I'm trying to do it for others, but there was this piece of it that was like, well, how should make me feel better, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, but for what end? To what end is that feeling better for, right?
Yeah.
So that is something that, I'm now noticing even in other areas. Like, I want to write a book real bad. I actually already started writing it, and I want to
Awesome.
publish it, and I want to get it out there because I feel like the message that it's one that's not really that revolutionary. It's one that's been, I'm pointing over at my fucking bookshelf, like the one that has been like handed to us for thousands of years, right? Like, there's these constant teachings and these constant this constant pushing of like, hey, look, the reason why humans repeat this, by the way, is an interpretation from my mind. The reason why
Hmm.
humans repeat so much of history is because we forget, and we forget, one, that there was people before us, and
Hmm.
two, we are a species of amnesia. We actually get so caught up in our own world, and we forget that the question of who am I is the question of life, right? Like,
Yeah.
constantly. And being in that who am I, you actually also can get trapped because you're forgetting how you're providing for others as well, and that the purpose of everything in every society is to, how am I going to be able to give back and help others lift up, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the beauties of living in a free society that way too. I just, there's something about the concept of the self that becomes the greatest question of all, right?
Hmm.
For each individual, right? And I don't know if anybody will ever have the answer, and it's not going to happen because it's so everywhere. Now, there's playbooks and templates and things like 12 Rules for Life is a great book, by the way. I really do appreciate that book a lot. But the 12 Rules for Life, even, like, and Jordan Peterson would say this out loud. He'd be like, "Look, it's something. It's a template. It's a pathway, but it's up to the individual, you know."
Mhm.
So it is a. But anyway, the point of me even bringing all that shit up is even I right now I'm struggling with if I put my own thoughts out there, like I. I'm going. There's a really large chance I am going to be attacked, right? And I'm going to be people are going to come after me, right? If it does blow up or whatever, like not saying it will, but if it does, like it's still out there. These are
Mhm.
my actual intimate thoughts that I really think I need to put on paper. Like I felt like a true calling to do that.
Mhm.
Um, and I've paused it. I haven't done it simply because of fear, right? Like, what am I scared of? What am I because it's so intimate, right? So the intimacy of your own thoughts also becomes the darkness of them, right? So
Yeah.
that's the scariest place to be. And when you let your light out instead of sitting in the darkness of your own mind, people will try to darken it, right? They'll try to put you back, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that's what you're going through currently with your
Yeah.
own life. And I see that and I feel that deeply.
Yeah. To so many things. I think it's vulnerability. I think that there's that fear of being challenged and being ridiculed and being made a fool. But I
Yep.
think that at the end of the day, I don't think that confidence comes from you believing in yourself delusionally. I think that it comes from having a stack of undeniable evidence that you've been able to do what you said you were going to do every morning,
Mhm.
every day. Everything
That
stats up. Everything.
that is exactly fucking right,
Yeah.
which is exactly why I'm going to fucking do it.
Fuck yeah,
Right?
man. And
Yeah.
I would read it. I would read it. I think that you have a beautiful message, and I think you should definitely share it with the world. And I think what happens in my opinion is that we do live in a society, you're right, that is sometimes can be very evil, and we sometimes only pay attention to that because that's what the news shares, and that's why I don't really listen to the news anymore. But
Right.
the good stuff in this world, it doesn't get amplified. It doesn't get shared the same way. Why? Because it challenges people's beliefs. It honestly challenges not just people's beliefs, but it almost confronts the reality of why aren't they doing that? Why
Yeah.
and then it makes people feel like, well, the other person has it easier, or I have this unfair, life, or the other person has an unfair advantage. And it's simply just not true. It's just up to individual actions. And people
Mhm.
can argue that, well, I was dealt this bad hand. Okay, maybe it's not your fault, but I do believe that it is your responsibility to
That.
change it, to do something about it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I'm on that journey. I also one day want to write a book. I want to be able to share my thoughts, and I'm doing the work. I'm gonna be recording 30 videos here with my video editor in about an hour, and I am challenging myself to continuously be more open with the beliefs that I have, the things that I want to say, because you know what? If they can influence or help someone have a perspective shift or help someone see their life in a different way, then that's a freaking win, right?
That's
And
right.
to what Rocco said, you're right. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with doing the work and helping people and having that euphoria from it. But like you
Yeah.
said, it has to be that. It can't just translate into you feeling good about what you're doing because then you lose I think you lose the message a little bit instead of realizing that you're doing it for other people, you're doing it for yourself. And that's why I think it's a slippery slope when veterans get out and they want to be of help to people because I think then it's very easy for them to ignore their shit because they feel like at least they're still being helpful to people. At least they're still doing something for people. At least they're still giving back in one way, shape, or form. But they're not doing it for themselves. So
Right. That's
yeah,
the key, right? Like that's
yeah,
it's a it is also very eye-opening too, especially when you're checked, like, hey, like you're
yeah,
doing it, you're helping people out, but what is the purpose? Like what is the reasoning behind it? What are you trying to hide? What are you trying to, put under?
yeah.
Like it's good to want to help people, but to what end are you doing this?
You have to be a lighthouse, not a tugboat. You cannot go into the storm trying to bring people in because you're going to keep taking on water, and eventually you might be the one that needs saving. You have to be that lighthouse of what it is to be the example of what's possible and what is doable because there's people that are like you. And there's nothing special about any of us. It's just the individual choices that we make on a day-to-day basis. And when you can be that lighthouse for people like you, being able to show people what's possible, it does give them more than hope. I think it gives them an action plan. What you're doing with Project Refit, what you're doing with speaking your words, what we're doing here, having the hard conversations. Hopefully, somebody is listening, and that they can hopefully take one small action in their day that's going to be different, that can change the outcome of their day, that can change the outcome of their week, month, life, right?
Big time. I actually, it's funny when you say that, because also what comes with being a lighthouse, is you can say something to someone that about themselves if they're asking you like, "All right, what do you really think?" It's like, are you do you really want, the that opinion? I mean, are you in a
Right.
place for that? Do you really wanna feel that? Because, and then sometimes you give it, and um, something that I've learned through leadership also actually is you really have to, if you want to offer help, it's actually guidance, right?
Mm,
It's guidance, less showing or telling someone something.
mhm.
It's just guiding them to come to the conclusion themselves. It's a longer process,
Yeah.
but it's also one that some people need to be told straight up right in the beginning, like what it is. And then it's like, and then it hits them and it hurts. But like that person has to be ready for
Mm,
that, because the truth does hurt, but they have to face those realities. Right.
yeah.
And then what they do with that knowledge, is really ultimately up to them. And there's been people, in and out through Refit who, received great fucking things from it.
Mhm,
There's been some people who, have come through and they saw who they were, and it
mhm.
really broke a lot of their reality, and they're still here, but they're going through a new journey, right? And like one that either they're going to rise from or fall. But and it's like we can only do so much,
Yeah.
and actually a really good success story for that is this guy Wade Rosnewski. He's a big part of Refit now. He always has been actually, but years ago, he was struggling with alcohol and drugs, and flat out said to him, like, dude, you're drinking too much, you're doing drugs, like you're lying, like you're not really fucking helping out. Got to the point where he tried to kill himself. We got him to a hospital. Um, and then he put himself into inpatient care for a couple of years, came out. He's crushing it now. He's back in Reef. And I told him flat out, and I tell everybody this, I'm like, look, you're going through something, like we're always going to be here and you're always welcome. Like you're always
Mhm.
welcome to help out, be a part of it, help others. But you really have to make sure that you're in a place where you can do that effectively, and that's something else too that I've realized. It's hard to people who, are stuck in either, thoughts of like I'm always right, always, and like,
Right,
or
no.
I'm like the never wrong mentality is like that is not conducive to teamwork. It's not conducive
No.
to any of that stuff, right? And
Yeah.
lying, and it leads to that, and it leads to manipulation, and it becomes an infection, and also the victim
Yeah.
mindset and the all those different things that come into play. And people who aren't trying to actively try to, um, think for themselves becomes it's the ultimate crutch. It's so many people struggle with, right?
Yeah.
And that in and out has taught me that it's guidance. It's not telling people exactly what's going on or what you're seeing. It's actually just guiding people to recognizing it themselves,
Yeah.
you know? And that's a very, again, a long play. It's very difficult. And also means that I can't, as a leader, I can't actually be sharing shit with people all the time about how I'm doing, right? Because there's
Yeah.
also people who are asking those questions to be manipulative and
Mhm.
be harmful. And I'm not naive about it. I know that's a real thing. I just need to be like the leader focused on where's Refit going? How are we going to scale it? How are we going to raise the money to allow other people to
Yeah.
do the good work? You know?
The vision.
Mhm.
Here's one for you. I think you'll enjoy this. So a lot of people that get out of the military, and I talk a lot about this with people that I have conversations with. They think that the thing that they lack is the discipline. They think that they lost it, but I believe that it's not necessarily discipline. It's not the what, the how, it's the why. I think that they're just missing that devotion piece. They don't have a strong enough reason
Sure.
to do the thing that they used to be able to do, and I think that that comes with the fact that in the military, for the longest, you were told what to do, and it's not that you can't
Yes.
think for yourself, it's just that you have been programmed, indoctrinated, part of a culture of being able to follow the mission and having that constant and willingness to obedience, if you will, to orders. And it is
Yes.
necessary, right? But like now when you get out and you don't know what your why is, you lack a little bit of devotion, and you have to have a really strong why to do the how and to do the what,
That's
right?
right.
And it's just that piece they have to find. But like you have to remember, you are the mission when you get out. Initially, that's my thoughts at least. You know.
It's interesting, but here, yes, and to what end? So the
Mhm.
question then becomes like, okay, so now you get out, like you had a mission, now you have to find one for yourself. And if it does become you and you need to fix you, don't get trapped in that,
Mhm.
right? Because then it becomes like this, you begin to fear your own thoughts, right? You
Mhm.
begin to fear your own decisions. You're going to be in therapy for the rest of your life. Like, why would you subject yourself to
Mhm.
being in therapy for the rest of your life? Being
Mhm.
in therapy is good if you have an end goal where you're trying to
Yeah.
be. Going back, if you have another chapter in your life you're trying to get through and you want a little bit of guidance or new tools, go back like a doctor. But there's too many people who use it in a way that it
Mhm.
becomes their crutch for the rest of they're the victim to themselves,
Yeah.
right? And they point fingers everywhere else other than within, right?
Mhm.
And it becomes a distraction. So I really have this thought of, I by the way, I'm agreeing with you to a
Mhm.
point. So
I hear you.
the point is, where now are you going to try to provide that value?
Mhm.
If you do find that why, which I do think does help with providing purpose and discipline, things like that. If you do find that why, that will help guide you to a direction. You have to just choose a direction.
Yeah.
Just choose somewhere to walk, choose somewhere to go. Because
Mhm.
right now you're in a mess of, where am I? Right. Like, and you just, it's all of the things you can be that freak people out. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just choose. Just listen to yourself. Choose somewhere. Walk somewhere. You will
Yeah.
stumble across something, right? So, and that's the hardest thing, is taking that step towards somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So that's and it's a really difficult. It actually is a really difficult concept to really understand. But
Mhm.
once it really sinks in for people that, especially in the veteran space, where it's like, all right, I don't have this mission anymore. I'm not being told what to do. I have to tell myself what to do and I have to lead for myself. I've been a follower for so long. Apply the follower mentality to your own life and become the follower to yourself.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing that I think needs to be said more to people and needs to
Mhm.
be spread more. It's like, look, you were a great follower for so long. And even if you weren't a great follower, you knew how to follow to a point. Follow your own thought now. Develop the plan for yourself and go
Yeah.
somewhere. I mean, that's the story and teaching of Buddha, by the way. There's something a lot of people know about that. This story and teaching of Buddha is, Buddha was underneath his father's roof for 100 years or whatever, right? And then one day he decided that, I want to go out into the world. And he went out into the world and he went through a lot of suffering, a ton of suffering, right? Hurt, loss, death, everything. Like, he went through it all.
Mhm.
But the teaching at the end of the day is, but I decided to do that and I lived. The only way you
Yeah.
can live is by actually exposing yourself to the realities and the horrors of the
Yes.
world,
Yeah.
right? And that's why I say it's a gift, that everything you went through is a gift.
Mhm.
Now you have to further expose yourself to the world in a different way.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Mhm.
I uh I love the life that I've lived. I wouldn't change anything because honestly, because of everything that I've been through, I'm able to share the things that I share. And I enjoy being vulnerable. I enjoy telling my story. And I challenge myself to push myself more and more every time because it is part of the healing process. But like you said, you can't be in that healing loop forever. Eventually, you have to be proud of the fact that you were able to conquer something. You were able to come out of it. And then you have to survey the surroundings of I am in a different place. I have been able to conquer this or that, and now I can do more. It's like leveling up. It's like when you're playing a video game and you beat the boss at one level, and now you have more tools in your toolkit. You have more experience points, whatever, and then you can take on new challenges. And that's what I love. I love the fact that I'm doing something now that I've never done before. I love the fact that I keep pushing myself out of my comfort zone, because when you choose intentional hardship, when life throws real hardship at you, you can handle it a lot better because you've been there before in one way, shape, or form. So yeah.
Mm. So here's something else though.
Mhm,
Something that I've learned, and I was actually in the middle of a very good debate with someone who said something similar. That's also a psychological trap that I've learned, and I was able to finally get through it. Actually,
mhm.
I figured out the perfect analogy, and then the person literally sat back and they were like, "Oh shit, that's a good point." I was like, "Yeah, got you, bitch." So, what it was when you say the word, I like to live a life of hardship.
Well,
What hardship are you actually living? There was a person that said something similar to that, and they said, I wanted to live a hard life, like, and so I did drugs, and that's why I did." You did all these things that were actually really bad.
mhm,
It's you chose the hard that would actually destroy you, right?
mhm,
So another person, and this is actually the analogy I gave. I was like, there's another person that chose a hard. We're actually on their ranch right now, and they became very wealthy,
mhm,
and they chose a life of difficulty that was one of providing value to the world and
mhm,
exposing themselves in a way that they eventually accumulated a bunch of wealth, but it was very hard. It's very challenging. It's not
mhm.
easy. They had to get lambasted by, people and things all over the place. So why is it that you can't now switch your perspective of what is hard into the world of hard of improving yourself and making it better? Because that's actually even harder.
Yeah, and that's definitely more along the lines of what I mean. It's just definitely, I'll put it to you this way. So my point of it is that I get to choose what I do now, and I get
Yes.
to do the ice barrel in the morning. I get to take the cold showers. I get to choose the fact that I'm living a life of adventure. I'm living a life of the end state. The goal of it is having just real happiness, real love, real joy, and creating an environment for myself, and not being positioned in an environment that I have to be in because of other decisions that I made. So I'm there with you of
Yep.
what type of hardship are you talking about, right?
That's
Are
right.
you, yeah, so I'm there with you. I
A
got you.
life of adventure is very, very important to state. That's actually something that I wrote into the ethos of Refit was the pathway to healing for a person in general and for veterans and first responders and such. Show them that you can continue to live an adventurous life and then how
Mhm.
to tell the story about the life that they're living,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the pathway to healing and freedom is when you get to live an adventurous life, you get to do things, you explore, you learn, you're constantly curious, and then you get to share the story. It brings value to the adventure that you're living
Yeah.
because you're actually giving back to the people around you. It
Yeah.
is a constant living of adventure that allows you again to bring value. That is so critical and so important. And it is another one that was given to us thousands of years ago and talked about for thousands of years. If you
Mhm.
read the books and the teachings, whether it's the Bible, the Buddhism, Taoism, Muslim, Islam, like all of it, right? Like if you
Yeah.
read anything, any of these books, Stoicism, everything talks about or alludes to, I should say, adventure and how
Yeah.
important that is.
Yeah.
And also then the sharing of your adventure with others.
Yeah.
All right. Because because you get to see who you are. You get
Yeah.
to actually see who you are.
Yeah.
Like who was I born to be? Who am I is
Mhm.
only found through adventure.
Yeah. And I think it's like you said, it's an infinite journey. It never ends. And you pick up a new book and you learn something new and it changes your perspective. And I think that the shift of perspective doesn't mean that the idea or the thought that you had before wasn't real. It adds to it. It helps you see it from a different point of view. I think it shines more light on it. And I think it helps you understand everything that you've been working on. It just makes more sense. You
Yes.
know, when you look back and you look at all the work you've been doing, you can kind of label it, because if your time in the military, if you don't reflect on it after you get out, you don't realize that a lot of it was formative to give you certain skills, to give you certain types of leadership, to give you certain types of attributes that you can continue to use and evolve from and like build on. Otherwise, you look at it back and you resent it. You're angry about it. So you have to like keep. I think every lesson that you learn, every conversation you have, this conversation, it helps you start to label the feelings and the things that you went through looking backwards, because I do think it's important to reflect on stuff and
Yeah.
just like journaling and thinking about it and talking about it, because it helps you let go of some of the anger and resentment that you have for it, because it wasn't a bad experience, it was just an experience, you know.
Yeah, exactly right. And
Yeah.
Rocco put something up. He misquoted me. And then he said Benjamin Franklin said it. But he said, blood is the ink to the pen that writes the story of our lives. But it's actually pain is the ink to the pen that writes the story of our lives. And with that pain, you only get it through adventure. And with that pain, you can really find out who you truly are. So that's
Yeah.
something that I came up with and that I'm basically writing my book around is
Nice, I love that.
that whole statement of like pain is the ink to the pen that writes the story of our lives, because it is so true. I mean, like I have not been able to figure out a way to prove that that's wrong, right? So
Hmm.
that is the if you're not experiencing pain, if you're not experiencing life, you're not experiencing pain,
Hmm.
right? And it's that's where resilience comes into play too. And people love to talk
Yes.
about resilience now. And I'm like, man, you talk about resilience and compassion in the same mouth. And I can tell you right now that resilience and compassion are not always in the same fucking ball court, right? You know,
That's to me what
because
tough means.
that's
To
right.
me to me, toughness is resilience.
Yeah, big time. But how do you teach toughness, right? Like
Mhm,
it's a cultural thing. It's a living thing. You have to consistently go through it. And compassion, I feel like it's a very compassion can become a it's a fast actually the quote is that good deeds is the pathway to hell or something like that, right? And what they mean by that actually is if you have unchecked compassion, you
mhm,
will go to the person that's taking a ton of drugs, be like, oh, it's okay. I understand why you're doing that. That's fine. Like let's see if we can figure out a way to get you out of that. No, 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 no. We got to figure out like right the fuck now. We got to sit down and have a real plan put in place, right?
yeah,
That's strict, that's harsh, that's hard, that's painful, right? But that's true compassion in that
yeah,
instance, right? And compassion for sure is something that when you take into consider, it's almost as if feelings have become this this new level of you don't have any say because you hurt my feelings. You can't say anything more because you hurt my feelings. And it's like that's not how this works, right? That is a without the process. That is not a place of an actual conversation and growth
yeah,
and moving forward, right?
yeah,
Compassion's good to a point. There is a point in your life where you are now a man or you're now a grown woman and you need to really take accountability for your life and what you've
yeah.
done, right? So it's the proven, you're innocent until proven guilty kind of thing. And it's almost
Mhm.
as if I hurt your feelings, I'm immediately guilty and I'm immediately bad, right? And it's like that's not how that works. What is the intent behind the words that are being said? You have to
Yeah.
think about that deeply. You have to think, right? And that's a very hard it's a hard thing to do, and that's something I'm noticing in our modern world, you know?
I think it's hard because of people's insecurities, and we can definitely talk so much more about that, but I think that people's insecurities, they won't allow themselves to hear people tell them something that they have to hear, because then it means that it's true, and if they don't have to label it as true, then they can keep ignoring it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree. I think insecurities play a big factor into it. There's a ton of factors that probably go into it, but insecurity is
Yeah, for
definitely a
sure.
big one, right?
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. And it's definitely it's very manipulative too. I don't like I've actually had people use it against me for like, well, I didn't feel that way. I don't feel this, or I don't feel. What do you mean you don't feel? It's what you did.
Yeah.
It's what's happening, you know? And that's when I have to step in with myself and be like, all right, what can you do? How can you navigate this? How can you move yourself forward and move forward what the mission is or whatever it might be, right? Like there is a point in time where there's certain people, like I actually had a friend of mine who somebody was saying something about me to him, and I wasn't there. And he goes, I literally love this. This is a great friend. He goes, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I hear how it like sounds tough or rough or whatever, but
Hmm.
I wonder what his intent is.
Hmm.
That's a good friend. That's somebody that knows there's
Yeah.
something behind that. He's not just some piece of shit evil person that wants to hurt you.
Yeah.
What was the did you ask him what the intent was? Like, no, I just hung up or I just whatever, right? And it's just like, huh, okay. I want to know more. And he and I talked about it. And then when we talked about it, he's like, oh yeah, that makes tons of sense. Right.
Yeah.
And like you need to have discussions and hard discussions. And
Yeah.
that really is another that shows that's the adventure part and the storytelling part and everything. That
Yeah.
that shows you where you're going and where you're at,
Yeah.
right?
You have to be curious about what's really being said and how it's being said and what it means.
Great
Be
word too.
curious.
Be
Yeah.
curious, ask questions,
Yes.
big time. So for you, Juan, with your journey so far, you are very new actually to this journey of like moving yourself forward and everything.
Yeah.
Do you have a what is your end state that you have envisioned in your mind that you're also okay with maybe changing when you reach it? Or is it even something that's
Mm.
not attainable?
No, that's a great question. Mm. The thing that comes up for me when you say that is truly making sure that I am a good father for my children,
Mm,
making sure that I leave this world a better place than when I came into it, and in any way and every way that I can, and just understanding that like my story and the things that I go through, they're not individual to me. Other people are going through them too.
yeah.
And I guess the goal that I have is to just be able to help other veterans create success in their life and society. Because we're here, we're not going anywhere. We're a part of it, and we should be a part of it. We
Mhm.
we we are a part of it. We're not going anywhere. So that's my end state. I want to make sure that veterans can see that they have a lot of tools and a lot of things available to them that if they use them, they can create success in their life for themselves and society.
Right. And they get to decide what that success looks like.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And what is the here's a tough one.
Hmm.
So what is when you say those words, uh what are the morals and values that you believe are leaving the world a better place? And what are the morals and values by which people you think should be operating within to actually create or find that success or path or purpose? Morals and values.
Morals and values. So morals and values that I believe are super important for leaving the world a better place than you came in. Honestly, I believe a lot of it has to do with responsibility, with love. Believe it or not, I think that having love for humanity is
Mm,
important.
mhm.
And I think that we have to be willing to believe in ourselves so much that we don't worry so much about what the world is thinking or saying about us. And that's the hard one because we always wonder about that. But at the end of the day, I think that we have to operate from a place of love. We have to be curious about the world. We have to be willing to truly take responsibility over what we can control.
Yeah.
And when you do that, I think that you can start to emulate and be a better example for people and just create like real happiness around you. And for me, real happiness just means knowing that I am exactly where I want to be in that moment and I am present. And then there's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be than right there in that moment, present.
You know, that's a difficult one. One, I will respond to that actually, but one,
Yeah.
when you say responsibility, responsibility is freedom, right? And that's
Yeah.
actually goes back to something I'm learning about the military overall in the army specifically because it came from a guy who was in the army who was telling me this. They're trying to figure out how was the greatest generation so great? Like, what did they do? And an example that came up was on the battlefield, there was a point where they're trying to get a tank over a trench,
Mhm.
and they needed to do it quickly. And
Mhm.
there were a couple of ranch boys, you know, Southern boys or whatever, Western guys that were like, we know how to do that. We did that with our fucking cows. So they took poles, really strong poles, had like this like net or whatever, basically lifted the fucking tanks over the trenches to go take the position that they needed to take. And that ingenuity, that innovation
Mhm.
uh, came from responsibility that they grew up with. Right.
Mhm.
So you have to teach responsibility back into because true freedom is responsibility of your own life,
Yeah.
right? Accountability. That is the American spirit. That is, how are we going to bring that into our modern world when so many things are taken care of, right? How are you going to breed the next generation of greatness if you don't have responsibility inside of it, right? So that's incredibly important. And then the other side of like success, when you think about success from my perspective, what I'm hearing from you, success is one where you are truly taking accountability for your own life and you're able to project that onto other people, right? And like you're doing it in a way that instead of handing things to people, you're teaching people how to fish, right? Like you're providing people a pathway of how you got out of it. It might not be exactly how they're going to get out of it, but at least it is a playbook, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. I like that. That's a really good, because that's what you want to pass on to your children mainly and first.
Yes.
And I think that's a great goal, I would say. And I'd say you're on it now and you're working towards it. So, and it's one that is a lifetime journey. It's not attainable at one specific moment, which also means every present, including this one, is something that you can be grateful for, right? Like you're able to do this because of the decisions that you made. I love that.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
So, listen, Juan, this is awesome. We've reached an hour mark. I would love to have you back sometime if you'd be down for it.
Yeah, for sure.
So dude, that same link that you used, go use it again, get on the schedule. Let's have another conversation. We can have maybe some other topics we bring up and discuss and chat about and talk about your story, where you're at. And I know that you're also on social media a lot too, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
I'm JP, the veteran coach, on all socials. We're doing pretty well. Things are popping. It's been a fun ride. These last 2 years have just been wild on socials.
That's cool. So you're really, you're growing it. Jeff was telling me a little bit about it. I haven't checked it out yet, but I have to go over there and check it out.
Yeah.
But that's what really had Jeff wanted to reach out to get you on here. He's like, dude, you got to talk to this guy. He's fucking great. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Jeff, thank you. I did see your comments, so I appreciate you.
Hell yeah. That authenticity does go a long way, dude. It goes a long way. So thank you again for sharing your story here, man. I know you shared something that you don't really talk about openly in the very beginning, and I'm grateful that you're here. I'm happy that you made it through that really dark moment and that you're consistently still fighting off those dark moments every time you wake up. So that's really cool. And that's really good to know that that is something that you also still struggle with, meaning that you can get through it and other people can too. So
I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure. I'd love to come back on sometime.
Love it, dude. Let's go. All right. Thank you, everybody.